nurse practitioner. For the past 5 years, I have really been into policy, so working in health policy. I currently am an assistant professor at the University of Alabama at Birmingham School of Nursing, but I have been in family practice since 2011.
Wow, so the last 14 years. Now, fascinate me and educate me, and maybe some of these other folks that know a lot more about this than I do. I saw so many alphabets behind y'all last name. I mean, I saw like F, N, L. I said, now, wait a minute. I got to know what this is because help me with that. So help me starting with yourself, if you don't mind.
Okay, so the first one is the doctoral. So it's a DNP, so it's a Doctor of Nursing Practice.
Okay.
RN is the registered nurse. And then FAN. So FAN is a fellowship in the Academy of Nursing, and it's one of the highest fellowships that a nurse can receive,
right.
Just to honor your work in research and practice.
Yes, okay, very good. I know I saw all those alphabets. I said, I want to make sure I get the designation of what some of that means. That's good. And Ms. Shekinah, if you could.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Shekinah Joy Lee. I'm a licensed professional counselor. And so what that means, as far as like the alphabets and things.
Yes. I say that with no disparagement.
Definitely understand. I received my master's in education from the University of Montevallo. That's where the MED comes from. The LPC is a licensed professional counselor. And then I'm a nationally certified counselor. So that just means that I've completed that examination and am considered a certified national counselor. Okay. In addition to that, I do have experience in ADHD. So I'm an ADHD certified clinical service provider. I'm also a grief support specialist. And here recently, I've gotten certified in OCD, so that space as well.
Really? So OCD, and did I hear you say ADHD?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow, they got certification designation for all that. That's good. All right. So yes, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you as well.
My name is Wendy O'Neill. I'm a certified family nurse practitioner.
Okay.
I began my nursing career in 2014. I was a staff nurse, and then I decided to venture out and do some travel nursing. So worked in various hospitals across the country, and then I decided to just take a leap and settle down and become a family nurse practitioner. And then these last 2 to 3 years, I've kind of ventured into just alternative services such as IV hydration. Mm-hmm. Right now I work in a health clinic doing family practice, and then my business that I started focused on wellnesses.
Mm-hmm. Very good. You know, I'll say this. There's a scripture in the Bible, and we'll get right into the Q&A. It says, for thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind, everyone say my mind.
My mind.
Yeah, whose mind is stayed on thee. So let's think in terms of the scripture, but then also with regards to that, we're here to talk about the mentality. Everyone say the mentality.
The mentality.
Yeah, we're here to talk about the mentality of the human body, and as it impacts family, as it impacts church, as it impacts community. So with that having been said, here's my first question. What are your thoughts about stress? You know, what are some of the causes of stress? Because how many of you can relate to being stressed?
Yes.
Yes, we all are familiar with what that is, what that comes about. But let's talk about that from a policy standpoint. Let's talk about that from a clinical standpoint. Let's talk about that as it relates to family. And I'll say this because you've already kind of given me some heads up that policy has limited reach in the sense of its implementation. It's hard to put a policy on stress because if that's the case, we just say we don't subscribe to the policy of stress, so we're done with that. But we know that certain mental illnesses may start with stress, but it may progress over into ADHD, so forth and the like. So with that having been said, let's spend a few moments just talking about what stress is. And so who would like to jump out here and just kind of answer the first question? What is stress?
Well, in general, stress is like, there's good and bad stress, so stress isn't
Right.
all bad, you know.
Really?
When you consider things like even us getting ready to do this presentation today, there might have been a little bit of, stress related to like what are we going to say and how are we going to present ourselves. I want to make sure we get our points across, so that's good. But then when we think about the continual cycle and you don't get rest in between, you're not giving yourself breaks or giving yourself moments to kind of have those spaces where you're in a place of rest in between those high stress moments, that's when we have a problem.
Okay.
So that can look like you've worked a full 40 hours in addition to that 40 hours for your regular 9 to 5. You then come back and do another additional 20 hours for your after 9 to 5, your entrepreneurial journey and things like that. If you're doing both at the same time, you have not been getting adequate sleep nor nutrition, this is going to impact you in a negative way. That's like the wrong space for stress.
Okay, so would you say, this is me trying to be medical, I'm not medical, but that adrenaline could be a form of stress?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Did I
absolutely.
say that right?
You just mentioned like the physiological, changes that our body may have. So I was talking to actually a patient recently, and we were just talking about, it was actually my grandfather. But when he wakes up in the morning, he checks his blood sugar, and while he's laying and he's resting and relaxing, and his blood sugar is, normal.
Okay.
But after he gets up and gets moving, his blood sugar increases. But that's a normal physiological change for our body, right? We need, additional sugar to get up. Our blood pressure, same thing. When we're laying down and we're relaxed, our blood pressure may be at a lower level. Once we get up, that is our body's way of saying, okay, so now I need an extra pump, right? So that I can get up so the blood can flow through my body. So there are good and, as Shekinah mentioned.
Very good.
I actually break it down. That's good too. There's positive stress versus negative stress. You can use it interchangeably, but examples of positive, okay, getting married, getting a new job, having a baby. Some negative stresses are losing a job, going through a divorce, coping with a chronic condition. So I think we just have to identify which one is which and how do we cope with those.
Okay. So do you think that the outcome is what makes it positive or negative? Or is it the experience?
I think what she said is how you cope, right?
Yeah.
It's how you deal with it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
losing a job, is it that we just do not try to look for another job? Is it that, or do we get on the job search immediately? So that was.
Well, you're educating me because I thought all stress was of the devil. I thought stress is just like, I didn't know there wasn't such a thing as a good stress. Because if I feel like I'm experiencing, like if I get ready to try a case, I start thinking, okay, these people have made a monetary offer in this case. I'm about to try this case before 12 jurors. I could lay an egg or come back with a 0 and I got to apologize to these people, or I could have a good result. So I may feel this in my mind. I'm saying, man, do I feel stressed? Or am I just like my adrenaline going, like I'm ready to,
Yeah.
but I try to say I'm not stressed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm stressed, but I'm telling myself I'm not stressed. That's just an adrenaline, And so maybe that's mental health. Maybe y'all can help me with that. But
I think
yeah.
some of that is that perception. Your perception is your reality related to what that thing is, right? And so when you're considering the fact that I'm about to go and do a thing that does have a clear consequence, all things have consequences,
Right.
And so it's like an idea of how am I going to be, where's my place of balance, and how do I maintain balance, and that's how we manage. You might interchange the word stress then with pressure, right? There's this good pressure, this very intense pressure that I might feel in this one situation, and that pressure is based off of the outcome. There is a true consequence to this space, but that doesn't mean it's about how you have been able to maintain yourself throughout whatever your life's challenges are. It could be up or down, right? But the balance place is where we need to live and stay, and that's how we manage stress or pressure.
Okay. So with stress, do you think that stress comes, or is meted out being in anxiety? Like when you're anxious about something or you're trying to, beat the clock with a time, a deadline or something like that. Do you think anxiety plays into all stress, or is that something separate and apart from just being stressed? Is that making sense?
That makes perfect sense, but anxiety is a preoccupation with the future and the conclusion that will happen in that future.
That's anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's not stress.
It's not stress in the way that stress can be good or bad, and it's at that balance level, right? We get to that place of anxiety when it's like, this is impeding my ability to be present. I can't even focus on what I'm doing right now because of the fact that I'm too preoccupied with what's going to happen next week, what's going to happen tomorrow, what my relationship is going to look like in a year with my business, or what my relationship is going to look like with my customer, my client. That's when we get into that place of being anxious and being super overwhelmed related to what's going to happen next, and we're not able to be present. We're not even able to acknowledge the light stress that might be here because we're too focused on the future stress that might be bigger or heavier, or the pressure that might be in the future.
Okay, so anxiety deals more with the anticipation of an undetermined outcome in the future.
There you go.
And so with anxiety, stress could be like the springboard, but anxiety would be the anticipation of where you're going to land when you come off the springboard.
And it's all about your perception of it.
It's all about perception. How does perception play into anxiety and stress, do you think?
In the way that you determine whether it's good or bad, I would say you guys can add if you'd like to. But and essentially, if I can perceive that I'm only worried about today, I'm gonna keep my eyes focused on today. You know, they talk about give us this day our daily bread because that's all you need to be focused on is today.
Right.
And then manage today, and then we'll work on whatever for the next piece. But if we're allowing ourselves to only pay attention to what's happening right now and not be too preoccupied with the future, then that's when we can stay in this place of like level stress. A certain amount of stress, but a healthy amount of stress versus getting to that place of anxiety and anxiousness.
Okay. Do you think that planning can help you better address stress and anxiety? If a person's a better planner with time, with money, with resources, can they better manage stress and anxieties? Do you think that time management is not say a cure-all to stress and anxiety, but it will help you better manage stress and anxiety? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
What
I
are
think
some
so,
examples
absolutely.
of that? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, beyond that though, I definitely think that is something that can help. But I also think going just back to the perception of stress is it's also just our lived environments and what we have seen as stress as growing up,
Okay.
and also just how we've been taught. So, example, this has nothing to do with anything, but as it relates to like bugs, my mom was afraid of bugs, so now I'm afraid of bugs, right? But if I did not see that my mom was afraid of bugs, then maybe I would be different. So it's how we grew up in our learned and lived environment as to how we deal with stress. And she mentioned about coping and perception, and I think those play a huge role. So really understanding ourselves and thinking, you know, why does this particular situation stress me? Or why does this situation cause anxiety? Is it because something that someone else has told me growing up, or is it because I am truly, you know, concerned or afraid?
Right. Especially in the context of business ownership, if you've never seen somebody do something before, or you've been in spaces where you've never seen somebody have a situation like this before, you might automatically be like, well, that's going to be too stressful for me. I'm not going to do the thing, or I'm not going to go out in the slim and do it. But if you consider that, okay, what if I did see someone do it and was extremely successful, it might not have the same level of stress or it make me anxious at all.
Okay, so you think that planning can help minimize stress and anxiety?
Right.
And then having proper relationships with people who are successful could help minimize stress and anxiety. If you grew up in a house where a parent or your siblings are business entrepreneurs, certain things you'll just acquiesce to because you've seen people manage that so well and they don't look like it's a big deal, so you just do it because it doesn't look like a big deal. Sort of like what you're saying about bugs, respectfully to your mom. But she was afraid of bugs, and so without you even touching one, killing one, spraying Raid or whatever, you were like, I'm afraid of it too because my mother, right?
Right.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Interesting. Very interesting. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we need to be prepared for most things in life. That way we can be properly aligned for what's to come, the fear of the unknown.
Right.
I've taken the necessary steps to do what I need to do. So when something does happen, we can just lean on the Lord for that, okay? And I think it's also about breaking those cycles in your family. One may cope with stress, you know, in a negative way, and that just continues. And we don't have like support to break those cycles. So I think identifying those stress factors, that anxiety, and getting the necessary support to be able to break that cycle, I think that's something we should work towards.
So what do you think are other things that could support people to overcome stress and anxiety, or we'll kind of get into this in just a second, but post-traumatic stress disorder,
Right.
what we know to be PTSD. You know, what do you think are some things that people could have as takeaways that, okay, when I feel stressed, I need to start doing this, or I need to stay away from that? You know, what are those things you think we could do that are constructive, you think?
So I work with a lot of athletes, and there's one coach, his name is Coach Otis Leverett, and one of the things he tells his kids all the time is pressure is for the unprepared. So
Pressure is for the unprepared.
unprepared.
Wow.
So one of the things is what these young ladies have been saying the whole time is, you know, to be prepared. And I'll let you know.
I guess you can, it's journaling, taking
good.
time out to do that, write it down, make it plain.
Right.
Meditation, just taking a moment of just taking a breath.
Well, you
5
know,
minutes.
and some people thrive under pressure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, some people have conditioned themselves that when they get under pressure, you give an example of an athlete. Some athletes make great performers, or they make great, catches, if you will. George Pickens, who's related to us, he told me once we were at the beach, and he said he can't catch a football unless the defender's all over him. But if he's in an open field, he said he's probably gonna drop it. But if somebody's climbing over him, he said he just finds a way to focus and makes the catch of that ball. Because under pressure, sometimes people have conditioned themselves to perform better under pressure than when they do when they're not under pressure.
That's right.
I think one of the biggest things, even to piggyback what Wendy was saying related to journaling and things like that, it takes that, what you're explaining is this person has learned themselves. Trust is built situation by situation, right?
That's interesting.
And this person has learned that this is what I need to thrive in this space. This is what I need. The same thing can probably be said about his prep work that he does during whatever warm-ups, whatever drills they run, everything else. Over time, he's learned this thing by himself. And oftentimes when we're talking about things about stress, how to manage those things, how to be proactive in our wellness journey, we do not take the time to self-reflect, learn ourselves, identify, take inventory really of like what has happened throughout the week, my points of success, my points of failure, where do I land in the middle, and how can I be intentional about kind of assessing to see what do I need to do for the next time. And so over time, this person has learned, this is what I do, this is where I am, this is what I can trust about myself and my situation, and this is how I can make sure I show
That's
up.
great that you say that, because that's an assessment.
Yes,
So you're saying it's better that you assess what's stressful to you may not be stressful to someone else.
Absolutely.
And what causes you anxiety may not cause anxiety in someone else. So you really can't take a boilerplate template and say, oh, if it's a stressor for me, it's a stressor for everybody. It's like, no, some people can do that and it not be a stress for them at all, because they're so well prepared, or they have this reservoir of being so prepared that if they get under stress, they'll perform even at a higher level.
That's right.
Just to really piggyback off of that and go kind of going back to the physiological conditions of stress. So we talked about the good stressors, but Chicana mentioned something about just being in that high anxious, or it does have physiological implications on our body. So we talk about high blood pressure. We talk about diabetes. Stress, like for us getting up in the morning, right, that little bit of stress, but maintaining that high level of stress, high level of anxiety can impact our blood pressure, can impact our blood sugar. And we know that all of those things, God is just so amazing in how he developed our bodies, because that could impact our kidneys. It can impact our eyesight. It can impact our liver. I mean, so I think that is something that we need to understand just about so not only just what the stress does to us on the outside, but what is it doing to us on the inside as well.
That's interesting.
That's good.
To add to what you're saying from again, from that kind of like neuroscience perspectives, I'm gonna do this like I do when I'm teaching kids. Bear with me though. But so if you imagine your brain is a fist, right? If this is it. Right here at the front is your prefrontal cortex, right? And on the inside is your amygdala. Your amygdala is what manages your emotions and things like that, and your prefrontal cortex is the thing that helps you make decisions. That's your cognitive function. And what often happens when we're in our fight or flight response, if we get triggered, if we get too much stress, if we're in that high anxiety space and things like that, that prefrontal cortex is completely unattached to its amygdala. Amygdala is like high performance, fight or flight. We need to do what we need to do and to save ourselves in that moment, because we feel threatened, our body feels threatened, our brain feels threatened. And if we stay in that space, just to Lindsay's point, it continues to impact all these other parts of our body. So our brains are meant to protect. It's a protection mechanism, but we have to know how to manage it. We have to know these things that are, what are the spaces where my anxiety is high, where my emotions are high, because then my brain literally taps out. It does not attach to itself to regulate our emotions. That's where you get the PTSD responses that you were talking about earlier. All that shows up in that space. So the more intentional we can be about learning ourselves and what are the things that do that, the more we can manage it.
Okay, so once you take this deep dive and say, okay, I recognize, just for teaching purposes, I'm stressed. So what do I say to myself next? What do I do next? What's the next move once you recognize you're stressed and you have all these emotions going on and this detachment? You mentioned the word, what was it again? What was it?
Amygdala, the attachment from our amygdala, is that what you're talking about?
Amygdala, okay. All right, these are common terms y'all use. Y'all got to drop in some knowledge in here. I want to make sure we give the audience a chance to really
I'm sorry.
latch on. That's okay, you're doing great. So the amygdala, you said it detaches?
Okay, what I want to say is there is like certain neuron connections that happen in your brain. They connect to each other. They cause this cause and effects that's taking place in your brain all the time, right? It's the thing that helps us regulate our bodies, breathe, all the things. So one that happens when you are under high stress, or one that happens when you are in a fight or flight response, when your body is all like, I need to save myself, I need to protect myself. You see it happen in animals all the time. Like if they're in a corner or something like that, they might bite or attack because it's happening, right? The same thing happens within us. So our prefrontal cortex detaches from or isn't able to send the same responses to the amygdala, because the amygdala is like, I don't care what you talk about, we need to save ourselves, and what does that need to look like?
Yes.
That's interesting. That's interesting, isn't
a good way to
it? That's some knowledge that you're dropping on that.
Yeah.
So give us an example that we can discuss for a few moments of where that may happen, that maybe some of us can relate to. Like when you get, I don't know if it would just say traffic, when somebody snaps in traffic, or someone's about to get into a fight, or if someone gets shot and they're fleeing an attack or some type of aggression. Let's spend a moment just trying to find some scenario where that is more likely to happen than not.
Some of the ones you just listed, interestingly
Okay.
enough.
Well,
But also, if you're at a work environment, you don't feel safe, whether it be microaggressions from your superiors or conversations. Somebody just sent the same email 3 times, so now you're saying, per my last email, instead of being able to calmly respond to what happened. Like these are sometimes, you see what I'm saying? These are situations where you're trying to protect yourself because you don't know if you're safe or not, right? These might be situations where somebody is telling you, trying to be lovingly direct about something that you said or did to them, but because you've been in situations where people weren't trying to be kind with you, or you've never watched arguments happen in a safe way, now your immediate response is, I'm going to get loud with this person, or I'm going to get aggressive with this person because I don't know I've never had that example before.
Okay.
Related to managing those things.
Interesting. So where does PTSD play into all of this, or kind of weaves itself into stress and anxiety? What is PTSD?
That's post-traumatic stress.
Disorder.
Did I say that? Disorder. Yeah, you can find the D. Textbook definition is when something traumatic happens. I think it is over a 30-day span or so.
Over a 30-day span?
For 30 days straight, you're in this distress. That's safe for the military. They've gone to war and they've seen horrible things. Or you have something else traumatic happen. You see somebody in a car wreck and you're stressed out about that for an extended period of time. Some people actually have to get therapy. I think it's all about setting a boundary for yourself, recognizing that you're in this state and you need help. Anything I want to add as far as
Is it a timeline that would kind of create the threshold? Like if it's more than 30 days or 21 days, or I'm assuming depending on the severity of it, the trauma, it may just be one incident. You mentioned military. You mentioned because people in the military have these protracted, instances of engaging in war or being in high stressful situation, maybe not even going to war, but just the anxiety of the potential of going to war puts them in PTSD.
Yeah. You go ahead. Yeah, it can be one event, something very traumatic happened. The loss of a child. Just like with the mothers, the postpartum depression. That is for an extended period of time. They tell you, like when you first have the baby, you may have the baby blues, but if it continues for months on it, 6 months or so, now you've entered into that post-trauma area. And if you don't have support around you, you may carry that invisible load. You'll have it all inside, and then it'll become visible when you start to lash out or you're crying, uncontrollably. And then you may, go into a phase of, okay, I need medication for this after it's been untreated for a while.
Okay. So prior to, and we're coming to the medical side because I think, obviously people jump right into the meds. But what can be done in the counseling phase before medication is necessary, if you will, in a given instances where someone has PTSD, let's say from the military or maybe even something like a pregnancy? What type of counseling, what needs to be said, what needs to take place, and what frequency would the person need this type of engagement before they get to needing medication, do you think?
So what initially happens is that acknowledgement piece, kind of that thing I was talking about before. I think we really underestimate how important it is to ask ourselves a question, how am I feeling, how am I doing today, right? Especially in comparison over time. So once you kind of notice, to Wendy's point, of that long period of time where you're like navigating this same thing, it keeps showing up 6 months or more especially, then I really need to go ahead and seek out professional support. And that's professional support could be without medication. There's a lot of different modalities that support specifically PTSD, like EMDR is one, and it focuses more on the eye movement component of, and not really, it's more the somatic part of managing the trauma as opposed to the cognitive part, because some people can like literally talk themselves out of saying that they need support or help because they can intellectualize things so well, like, oh, I know this is why I'm experiencing this, and then that's where they leave it. They don't really continue to go and do the work of understanding how can I start to manage it and feel better. Just
Did you say eye movement?
yeah, it's like it's eye movement. It's what they do is they focus on the eye movement component of managing the trauma. So like you're kind of like touching going inward and allowing yourself to feel what's happening as opposed to talk about what's going on. It's more focused on the somatic part of your
Because
experience.
sometimes, when I interact with people who have mental health concerns, it's like you can tell they're present, but they're distant.
Yeah.
Their countenance is like,
Right.
it's off. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, I have an involuntary blink because I had stitches when I was a really young kid, but I'm saying it, so I have this involuntary blink in my eyes. Preference not that. But sometimes if someone has a mental health concerns, you can tell through their countenance that they're present in front of you, but mentally you know they're not fully engaged, but they're physically present. And you mentioned eye movement. And so what I'm asking is that something where a counselor would sit that person down and say, listen, I just want to talk to you, and just keep your eyes on me while we're talking, and try to manage them back into a place of bringing them visually in focus? Or I'm just asking. I don't know.
It's not necessarily that. And to be transparent, I'm not certified in the area. It takes a lot of training to do. You
No
have
problem.
to like
Just
extensive and things like that. But the point that I'm making is that when it comes down to trauma specifically, like there's some things kind of like when you're managing what it takes to heal your ankle is not the same thing that it might take to heal your wrist, or what it might take to heal a burn might not be the same thing it takes to heal a toothache. And so in the same concept, I think we're trying to learn how to do that more. The more we have these conversations around mental health, we're understanding that there's certain things, modalities that might be necessary for one diagnosis versus the other. So when it comes specifically to trauma or anything related to trauma, that takes a different layer of skill than it would for someone to kind of like just I'm using my counseling as a place of maintenance as opposed to navigating a specific issue. Right. And so what that might look like over time, to your point, before I get to the point of medication, I might try these other modalities or these other versions of counseling to help me support myself, in addition to general self-care, general wellness. How much water am I drinking? What does my nutrition levels look like? How am I being intentional about managing my environment? Pastor was kind of talking about that today. So many of those things contribute to somebody's ability to manage their symptoms before they have to engage in medication.
Right, that's interesting.
Well, one of the things and I just had a conversation with a very intelligent young lady, and we were kind of talking about, our God-given purpose and passion, and just really understanding that. And some of the, non-medicine, even non-counseling things is really just identifying something that is greater than you. So, if I, I'm like really upset and I continue to dwell on my issue, then I'm going to stay in that place, and I might get deeper and deeper. But if I identify something else to that is going to fuel my passion, whether it's giving, whether it's doing something in the community, whether it's donating our time or community service, that is also something that can really help, just help you and really motivate you, whether it's I'm doing this for them, or this makes me feel good internally, so I'm going to do it for myself as well.
Very good. That's interesting. So in a given situation where someone has PTSD, what would you suggest for a family member of a person who's been diagnosed with PTSD? What would you suggest for the family to do to talk to them, engage them? What type of activities? Without making them feel like, oh, they treat me like I'm crazy, which, we say sometimes it's okay to not be okay, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we want to help bring people through this evolution out of being not okay to a place of being okay, without insulting them or making them feel like something's going on with you and we know it. Does that make sense? That question makes sense?
I'm so happy you brought that up, because I think it brings room to this phrase that I think a lot of us aren't aware of. It's called vicarious trauma, right?
Vicarious trauma.
Vicarious trauma, and that can be you not experiencing the trauma yourself, but witnessing somebody else going through the thing can impact you, and sometimes have the same symptoms even of PTSD, the hypervigilance, the stress, the night terrors sometimes. All those things might still come up for you as a person who is witnessing something else that someone else is going through, especially when it's someone you love and care about. So I think the first thing the family members have to consider is, what support do I personally need to show up for this other person? What type of counseling do I need to go and receive myself? There's plenty of families that I've seen where I'm seeing a family member of someone that is navigating some type of mental illness, and it's because they know they need support navigating this too. How do I not blame myself? How do I not try to make this my responsibility, right? How do I let myself be present and navigate this while taking care of myself and holding space for both? Like the grief of the fact that somebody I love is experiencing this, and also the reality that I also have to take care of myself.
Right.
So I think that's like the first step, is like giving yourself intentional time to see what type of support do I need so I can continue to support this other person.
Right.
And then sometimes in that language with your own therapist, your own counseling space, you'll be able to figure out, well, this situation happened, how can I manage this better? You almost have a mental wellness coach then with you, in addition to them being your therapist, they're also coaching you with how to support your family member or friend.
Right. What do you think? Do you think working out has an effect on managing stress and anxiety?
For sure.
Yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly. I have to work out like twice a day.
Yeah.
I have to. I will work out in the morning. I'm not saying it's right, just to manage the things that have to pass through my mind and the decisions I need to make, and be okay with the decisions after I make it. So working out helps. I understand. Just simply say it helps give you an endorphin release
Yes,
that kind of lowers your cortisol, which is a stress hormone.
It is.
So if I don't work out, oh God, don't let me in the house. Make me sit in the car and stay in the basement, because I have to, because it's a way. And I know that dates back to when my father was killed when I was 14. My dad had his brains blown out, unfortunately, and I saw that after the shooting in the hospital. And it went from he and I being together to just being dead. And that's when I got my first mentor, who's one of the tenants in one of our buildings now. He's my financial planner, and that's who my mother introduced me to, because he was helping manage her funds at the time, and he ended up being the best man in our wedding. And so he was going through something the other day. He was telling me about it. I almost started crying, because I was like, I was concerned for him, vicarious stressor for me. Based on what he was telling me, he was saying, make sure you stay on top of this. This is what he was telling me. And so, it can become a function of mental health. And I'm saying mental health, and that's something that disturbs you. So simply said, what is mental health? What do you think is a functional definition or lay definition from professionals of your stature? What is this simply said to be? What is mental health? What represents mental health?
To be honest,
Yeah.
and I think when if we're really, and the more we get more information, the more we're learning, I think so much of it has literally everything to do with everything. It impacts our decisions. Like I talked about earlier, if your brain is not functioning the way it needs to function, you don't get up the way you can't get up. You don't walk, you don't talk, you can't form sentences, none of those things. And what we don't realize, or what we're learning more and more, is how sometimes even the management of the situations I'm in, my environment, my overall mental health, or my stress management, my wellness management, those things all go together. If I'm not taking care of that part, I'm not taking care of the whole person. And to me, that's how important, or that's how much weight that definition of mental health has. It is how I am moving day in and day out throughout the day, through my decisions, my conversations. All those things are heavily, heavily guided by the top part of your body, your brain.
Yeah, just to speak on that, I think even further, it's just like physical health. So what is physical health, right? So we're encouraged to, eat right, drink plenty of water. We're encouraged to go to the doctor and check on our, our levels, like our blood pressure and our diabetes and things like that, or our blood sugars. And same with mental. It is an exercise. So it's something that but it's just in the brain.
Yeah.
So it's something that we have to constantly keep a check on. How am I feeling now? How is this situation, me sitting up here, how is this impacting me now? Mentally, what am I thinking about? They talked about journaling and doing things like that. I think that's important. So there are exercises that we can do to strengthen, improve our mental health.
So what exercises do you think mentally we can do? Is it like self-talk, where you tell yourself,
I'm feeling better when you know you're not feeling well? Is it what would be, just simply say, what would be some exercises that a person can say to themselves within themselves, not being psychotic, but just saying, okay, I feel a way, but that's over here to my left, and I want to feel a certain way over my right. I feel like depression, but I know I need to feel joy. Or I need to feel happiness, but I don't feel happy. You know what I'm saying? So what are some exercises do you think that people could actually say to themselves?
I think Wendy has actually come up with some. One of the things that the pastor says at the beginning, the word comes by hearing and hearing and
Yes.
hearing and
Romans
hearing
10:17,
by
right.
the word of God.
That's right.
So, so listening, saying things, journaling, affirmation.
I'm worthy.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm worthy. I'm somebody. I can do this.
That's good.
All positive terms.
That's good.
Okay? Then we have to set boundaries too. I mean, you can have a moment, I'm stressed, but don't sit in it. Don't dwell in it.
Right.
Scriptures, take you some sticky tabs, put it on the mirror, look at it. If you're going to be in a place, like in your bathroom or you're driving in your car, if you're going to be able to visualize these, you need to have some affirmations there. That way you can look at it when you're on your way out of the car, you're leaving the bathroom. We just have to be able to see it and put it in our minds so they can be a reminder for us. I think that's very important.
Do you think personalities have an effect on how people manage stress and anxieties? Like, you have type A personalities.
Right.
The way a type A personality person may manage something compared to someone of a different personality may handle something totally different. What do you think about that? What do y'all think about that?
I think so much has to do, there's two parts to this, and I'm happy you said that because there was something I wanted to share from this last question that I think will tie into this one. So there's this book, it's called The Morning Miracle.
Morning Miracle.
And
Who's
it
the
has
author?
this, I can't remember, it escapes me.
No problem.
But it's called The Morning Miracle. Thank you. It's called The Morning Miracle, and it has this concept in it, though, about basically 6 different steps that you can take every day, or 5 different steps you take every day that can change how you, especially intentionally around your mental well-being. And it's something you can do throughout the day. But it's called the Savers, right? Sitting in silence, affirmations, visualizing things, exercising, reading and writing or scribing, right? And you just take 6 minutes if you need to. You can turn it into an hour, but being intentional about incorporating that even at the beginning of the day before you go can be that thing to help kickstart your mental well-being, those things that you should be doing to be intentional about doing those things. I recommend that book to clients all the time.
That is good.
It's Morning Miracle, and it's by, thank you, Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod is his name. Thank you, Lindsay.
Miracle Morning by
Hal Elrod.
Hal
H-A-L.
Elrod. He'll send us a check later for an endorsement, but praise the Lord.
So that's that part, but we
Sorry.
we talk about the idea of personalities and those things. So much of the work that it takes for us to be some of it is a decision. Joy is a decision, like a decision to get up and do whatever, to watch this full video and get some information about how you want to show up mentally, to be intentional about having conversations with people you love. So much of that work is a decision. And I think when people have certain life experiences, it might impact, every time it's an opportunity for you to decide, am I going to let this throw me off and lead me down this road of kind of like despair and intentional staying in this negative space, or do I want to choose to show up a different kind of way? And those decisions over time is what I think aids in that character building that helps you to keep choosing yourself and keep choosing that joy and keep choosing to read my Bible and keep choosing to show up the way I need to.
That's good. That's real good. That's real good. So where does imposter syndrome present itself in these issues of stress, anxiety, depression, PTSD? First of all, what is the imposter syndrome?
Okay, so
I love it.
imposter syndrome is this concept, which I have a lot of different thoughts about this. When this first came to my attention, this was probably like 2022, but now I have some different understandings. But imposter syndrome is essentially this idea that some version of you is not worthy of where you're at.
Right.
Well, hold on, let me make sure I get this, because for those that are listening in cyber, we want to make sure they pick up on this. You said imposter syndrome is when a person perceives that they're not worthy of
of whatever position or space that they
Position
might be
or
in.
space that they may be in. Okay.
So for the example of an entrepreneur, you might decide that, you might have this feeling, this unction from the Holy Spirit that I need to start a business. And then imposter syndrome can come up. Who are you to start one? You don't know anybody that has started one. You don't belong here. Who are you gonna get the funding from? Who's gonna support you in this way? Things like that.
So we would say that's the devil in the spiritual
That's what I
realm.
know better now. That's what I know better. Yes.
Say that again.
That's what I know better now. That's what I know better. That's a better understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's a better understanding to know that's the devil telling you you can't do it. You know, even if God showed you that, it's not going to work. So she's saying that's when you know that's when a person's in a headspace of an imposter syndrome.
Right.
Because they're basically hearing a voice talking them out of something constructive that God is trying to lead them to do, coach them to do, bring them through. But inwardly, they have this imposture,
Yes.
a fake version of themselves, in this thought process that tries to run rampant and say, you can't come out of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, with that, what do you think that individual has to say to themselves? And we come into policy in just a minute. But what do you think that individual has to say to themselves? I'm assuming we would say affirmations would be helpful in that situation.
You can just tell yourself it's for a season. And it's okay starting off as like a new entrepreneur. No, you don't know everything yet, but with time you will. It takes experience. It's really a time and situation for the imposter syndrome. You're not supposed to feel that way for the entire time. For example, when I was got into nursing school, I became a nurse assistant. My goal was to become a nurse, okay? I got the job as a nurse assistant. Got acquainted with patients, and then I became the nurse. And I had the imposter syndrome. Now the nurse assistants had to ask me questions. And I was, go get the nurse. And I'm like, oh, I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. But that went away with the experience, with studying. So yes, it's really for a matter of time. You're not supposed to sit.
So studying and having affirmations, number one. And number
Correct.
two, we're just talking about steps right now, dealing with imposter syndromes. Affirmations. Number two, becoming more educated in your craft. Would kind of suppress the voice of the imposter that tells you don't know. It's like, well, I'm going to go find out.
Right.
Or you can't have, and then you go say, yes, I can have. Or you don't know anyone, and you go introduce yourself to someone. So it's things to combat that imposter syndrome, because you're right, the imposter syndrome will talk you out of God's best, or talk you out of the best idea, best business plan, because you start second guessing through this imposture. And you know, and without being taught that, as someone actually having shared with us about imposter syndrome, and we're coming into cognitive dissonance and other things in just a few moments. But that imposter, man, is brutal.
It really is.
That imposter syndrome is brutal. I mean, he'll talk to you late night, early morning, try to tell you some crazy things. You know, and this brings me to another point. I remember I had a gambling addiction. I'm telling all my business, but I'm putting my mental health out here. That's okay, y'all. Y'all gotta go with me. That's all right. That's stuck for me. And I have very high risk tolerance. So my conversion of my high risk tolerance was entrepreneurship. It was my way of trying to positively steer a high risk tolerance, because man, I would gamble on everything. I would shoot dice. I was in college. I'm just telling you, I play cards. I'd gamble anything. I would gamble anything away. I would take my money for the week. My mother would give me to go back to school. I would gamble away playing cards. I would go bet on dogs at the horse track, all that. Wow. And so when I got out of college, I said, man, I have a real high risk tolerance. And one of my college professors said, you need to be in business. I said, who? Business. I said, okay, that'll help settle this down. It'll help me give me the balance of that. And so I don't know if that's mental health. I'm asking if that could be mental health too, that you have such a high risk tolerance, not for craziness like jumping off buildings or, you know, doing things that are just ridiculous, but as far as risk, I don't have a problem taking risks. Not gambling in the stock market, but investing in the stock market, no problem. Because having a high risk tolerance, if not managed properly, it could be self-destructive. If you don't make that into something constructive, having a high risk tolerance can have you doing some crazy things that have no value for your long-term future or your immediate health and well-being.
One of the things that you just said, which I thought was just so key in your story, was you had a colleague, a mentor, somebody that's going to tell you the truth.
Right.
And I think oftentimes we want everybody, number one, to like sing us praises, but at what point, we need somebody to kind of tell us the truth. So when we talk about imposter syndrome, we do need someone to say, you know what, you're doing a great job, keep going, let me help you through this. But we also need someone to say, hey, let's talk about this and help you to realize, which counseling may be that person as well, but let's help you to realize that instead of gambling, let's put this in a more positive way.
Right.
So I think having a mentor or somebody that is really going to tell you the truth
Right.
is very important.
Right. And when people are in denial about certain things that are apparent, that could be mental health.
I was
Do you
gonna.
think?
That's one of the bigger things in what you were saying is that you took some time to reflect on this is an issue in the first place, and not only realizing that it's an issue, but then gave yourself permission to express that issue to someone else. To Lindsay's point, where you were able to pivot and come up with different decisions and different ideas. That accountability is very powerful, but it starts with your internal accountability first. Like you had to do some assessment and say, this is not a sustainable model. I need to figure out what to do next.
Right. Interesting. What about certain medications that people may have or need to take? Lindsay, share with us about certain policies that would go into place for people with severe mental health issues, now that we've kind of gone through PTSD, stress, anxiety, imposter syndrome, where someone may be manic and have these very significant mental health issues that are, and I'm not trying to say big ones or little ones, but have a very severe mental health concerns. How does policy really play into that?
Yeah, so policy, it's a real gray area as it relates to mental health. You know, one of the things that I know is that as you can, or an individual can be placed in a hospital just for mental health help if they are seeking to harm themselves or harm somebody else. Other ways that a person can be hospitalized if they're going through mental health problems would be if they have, and what we would call like failure to thrive. So their activities of daily living. So just getting up out the bed, eating, so they're losing a bunch of weight and doing those things. Those individuals legally can be hospitalized for those things.
Really?
But if there's just an individual that, you know, is still going to work, but, you know, still suffers with depression, but not taking their medication, or they're not bothering anyone else and, you know, they're surviving, there's no, as well, at least in the state of Alabama, as far as I know, there's no laws that can really impact or that can affect those individuals.
Right, and I'm familiar with some processes legally. We'll get to some questions in just a minute from the audience, where they have involuntary commitments
Right.
through the courts, where some people have mental health is so severe they need to be on meds, they won't take their meds, then you have to take them through a petition for involuntary commitment. And I've done thousands of those as an attorney. And it's very unfortunate to watch people go through it because it traumatizes the person.
Right.
You're trying to get them help,
Right.
but it also traumatizes the family to go take someone basically and get them arrested, a nice arrest, and take them to a mental health hospital, and they stay there for a week, 10 days, however long they feel the need, medicate them, and then with the understanding that they'll be released or discharged with a medication plan, that if they don't take the medication, depending on the severity, they could get arrested or create a whole nother set of problems. So that's just tough. That's tough for the person. It's tough for the family. And so, yeah, great. So let's do this for the remaining time we have together, say the next 5 or 6 minutes. If anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask any of our panel guests, we'll be more than happy to circulate the sound box so that they can have, yes, if you could help us with that. And so if anyone has any questions about anything we've discussed so far in these various topics, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll get the sound box to you and address your questions.
I was very glad to see that the young ladies, their position on mental health, the steps that they take toward mental health. But they also remembered what Pastor is saying by putting God in it. That's the main source. That is the main source, putting
Yes.
God in it.
That's good. You know,
It is.
who else has a question? Yes.
thank you all for all your information was very good. In
Awesome.
addition to seeing like therapists or medical professionals, do you guys recommend things like hydrotherapy? I've heard people say that they do things like that to help them with stress. Would that be something that could benefit someone that's going through something?
Could you repeat the question?
Hydrotherapy or any other type of outside of a counselor or a therapist or a medical professional or church, something that can help someone like hydrotherapy. Would that be something you could recommend? Like, what are benefits of things like that?
I think that's great.
So she says she thinks that's great.
Yeah.
That would be, or getting massages, that's something too.
Yes,
Going on
That's
walks.
yes,
Hydrotherapy is
Yes.
recommended.
yes.
Yes.
You said hydrotherapy.
Hydrotherapy.
Yeah, like water, right? Therapy, like water aerobics. And
I'm not really familiar with it. I've just heard people say that, so I don't
That's
know
what
if
it
they're
is.
getting
You were
some
right.
type of
is that what it is? Okay.
injection or something. I'm not really sure, or they're drinking something like hydro bars or just water. Period. Just drinking oxygen therapy. Would those be things that could help someone with stress or stressful situations?
IV hydration.
Yes, for sure.
Share with us a little bit more about IV hydration, Ms. Wendy, if you don't mind.
So with IV hydration, it's absorbed into the body at a much faster rate than just going down your throat. Digestion begins in the mouth. And some people, you know, you're busy day to day, you're not really drinking enough water. So even getting B12 shots, that's going to kind of help with the body, the fatigue process. So IV hydration, once you can get it on a weekly basis, bi-weekly, monthly, but that'll help boost your vitamins and mineral intake. So that's something that I operate in and suggest if you're having gut health issues or if you're vegan and you're not able to intake vitamin B12, that's an option. Also, muscle soreness, headaches, just dehydration, period. I think that's a great alternative that we should be doing.
That's good.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I
Take
got
your
it.
daily vitamins.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, getting in a sauna is good too.
Yes,
You know, getting in a sauna. I got in a sauna the other day, and it was
I
wonderful.
think before we move forward,
good.
one of the things that we did not speak about is like rest.
Yes.
That
Oh
is-
man, that's huge.
important. That's your circadian rhythm.
Yeah, that is just absolutely so important is that, you know, your body needs rest. At night, a lot of times it is a point of just rejuvenating your body. I mentioned earlier how amazing God was and how he created like our body to really to work together and heal itself. So when we're resting, when we're drinking and eating and even fasting,
Yes.
right? So if you think about it, when we eat or ingest things, our body physically has to break down those things.
Yes.
But just imagine if we fast and we're not eating, if we're drinking water, and so our body does not have to work as hard, and so it gives our body a chance to rest, so decreasing the stress on our body and our
great.
organs.
That's great.
Thank you. We have a question.
Next question.
Hey.
Hello.
So yes, I do have a question. So say if one is already on like medicine for anxiety, but it feels like it's not really working, what would be like any recommendations for like how to navigate life? You know, because for people, especially with severe anxiety, either you're functional or you're not functional. And so, like, I'll just use me for example. I am that hypothetical question. But I'm in school for mechanical engineering. I don't have time to be non-functional. So how does one kind of calm the nervous system down? We're like, it's okay. We do the affirmations. We do have the therapist. But it just feels like everything being tried, cold era, you know, and it's just off, you know. And at that point, like, we talk to God, we bring it to God. But in the midst of him still working, like, what do you all have any recommendations on what can be done just to get through the day, through the morning, through the afternoon, through the evening, and stuff like that?
That's a great question. That's a great question.
My first thing, especially if you are in school, first and foremost, is to try to identify what type of supports the school already has in place for students that are navigating certain diagnoses. More specifically, when it comes down to extra time with tests, extra time to study, any type of additional support with notes and things like that. For those times when there's even some times where they have like intermittent breaks that you might be able to take to be able to navigate that space. So that's like the first thing is looking for or identifying whatever school support is available. And that's just not for college, that's in high school, elementary, across the board. There's supports that exist, right, to support you with that. That's number one. Number two, then you identify the things that you can control and the things that you can't. Things that we can control is our sleep routine, to Lindsay's point. Things that we can't control is our nutrition. There's certain foods that we shouldn't be eating if we're feeling like we're in a high anxiety space. More specifically, caffeine immediately will send your things through the roof. So trying to identify, maybe I need to do teas instead of coffee. I know sometimes you have those late night study nights. I'm guilty of this myself. We drinking 2 or 3 cups of coffee. We don't need to be doing it. You see what I'm saying? So trying to make sure that we manage that even when it's necessary. Advocating for yourself, even within your friend groups, within your professors, as much as you can, related to like, hey, this is what I actually need, this is what I'm getting, this is the difference, I need to see what we can do to navigate this better. From sending emails ahead of time to professors about what's going on with you, it helps more than you would know, from grace periods to like extension for deadlines, all those things. And then when it comes to the day-to-day part, do not lose hope or faith in the fact that this is a temporary space that you're in, it's not permanent.
Right.
So much of some of the things that when we get to the point, we haven't had this discussion on the stage yet today, but when we think about crises and death by suicide and things, when people get to that place, it's because they think that this is the end, there's nothing else after. But there is stuff after. So being intentional about reminding yourself with that as much as you can, from sticky notes, affirmation cards. You might even make a voice note today when you leave out of here about what you believe for yourself in this situation and play that on a loop. If you don't have the energy to say it yourself, you can press play. You see what I'm saying? And let it repeat itself to you. But things like that can help you be intentional with your day. The more control you have over your day, the more intentional you can be about your thoughts. Remember that your words trigger thoughts, so thoughts trigger emotions, emotions trigger actions. So if I want to change the way I'm feeling, sometimes it does start with words, and sometimes it does. I can't just say it in the morning. I got to say it at 9, at 12, at 3, at 11, before I go to class, when I leave class, before I go to bed. You got to be aggressive with that thing because it's a fixed race. You already won, but you got to be aggressive with it to get to where you need to be.
That's awesome. That is awesome. That is awesome. You know, one other thing, just very briefly, we didn't touch on, I think it bears, because you just talked about crisis and suicide. Where does cognitive dissonance play in that bridge that gets people into suicidal decisions? Well, firstly, just to spend just a quick moment talking about what is cognitive dissonance. The pastor's done a phenomenal job some time ago teaching on that. I learned a lot from just that. But what is cognitive dissonance, do you think?
If you consider it being things that are like aligned with who you are, who you want to be, versus the behaviors and actions that don't align. Right. Another way to put it is like ego-systonic versus ego-dystonic things. Ego-dystonic are things completely unrelated to like who you want to be and things like that. They don't even align. Like it sounds far, far left. It doesn't even feel like it's connected to who you are. But the systonic thoughts might be things that do align. And oftentimes we're considering how that plays a part in suicidal ideations or death by suicide. It comes to this place where like it's hard for more to the point where I was talking about earlier about your cognitive function related to your prefrontal cortex is not in the same space it was. The emotions have taken over completely. I'm not able to manage those emotions. And now I think that this might be an only option. There's a lot of different ways that we can be intentional about supporting people, though, related to that space. Number one is having intentional conversations about them and being able to give people room to talk about what those experiences are. But this is the more important one. Everybody needs to be familiar with the number 988.
988?
988 is the crisis center number.
988 is a crisis center number. Just want to get that out here, okay?
It's 24/7. You can call it whenever you need to. There's somebody that's on that line. They can talk with you, talk you through. Even if you're not anticipating any type of even if the only thing you want to do is just hear somebody or talk with somebody, it doesn't even necessarily be that you're prepared to do anything, but they can kind of give you the resources they need. Oftentimes they'll send off wellness checks if necessary. You can call with a third party. You and a friend can call. But yeah.
That's awesome. Well, listen, thank you all so much for participating today. I hope you learned some things. Put your hands together for our distinguished panel of guests. And thank you as well for those of you that are joining us online. We want to send out a very special thank you to each person and also to our TAV media team. And on behalf of Pastor George and Judith Matthews, we want to thank you as well for participating in this session of Kingdom Aid Moguls. God bless you. We'll see you back on next time.